Doesn't get. Why is this thing talking now? Like it's talking on all. Is it something in the system or it's a new feature? Okay, but it's a good feature though because people will know that things are being recorded. I think it's something with something. It has something to do with privacy. So, uh,
Yes, it's like in a way to inform the people that it's going
yeah,
to be
that
recorded. And
that's
if
it.
you end it, it will say recording ended.
Yeah, I think it's because to make sure that everybody knows that something is being recorded, which is good. Uh, okay, so a few things that the reason I chose those, I have already discussed this, is that the objective of the course is not simply to understand how media works in a system manner, like knowing about different things and controversies and stuff like that, which is, it's kind of everybody knows about those. Like if we discuss government and media relations, I think even children know that this government doesn't like the media doesn't like government. Also, the media is partisan, so they are. Some people say that they are being funded. Some people say no, it's just political grudges and things like that. But this is kind of common knowledge. Like, why would somebody spend a full semester uh, knowing about things that are already known to everybody? Like, there is no harm in knowing things again, but it's also about perspective. The like one of the basic debates in our modern time is freedom. Like, the modern world is about freedom. Like, it's the question of it is like there are these sayings. I think therefore I am, and quotes like these. In the modern time, we are as much human as much free we are, and freedom takes precedence over all other uh, enterprises. Like in communist Russia, for example, and I'm not saying it from a capitalist perspective. People were fed. They had roof on their heads, and they were given medical assistance, and schooling was free, and everything. But they were not free, so they rebelled against it. I was fortunate to be in Germany 10 years after reunification. I lived at a place where the Monday demonstration started for reunification. And I have met people who were 10 years down the line in the new system from communism into the free market economy. And they had those mixed feelings. Like they thought that some of them, one of my friends who was doing his PhD as I was doing, and his father was a doctor. He was he was from a rich family because he used to wear a suit, which was quite unusual among students. And so my professor asked him to give me a tour of the city when I arrived. And we were walking around, and he said, it took me 10 years to overcome and adjust in this new system. And also the hatred for the new system. And he said, the free market economy, like it took me 10 years to understand how things work. And he said, that was very important, that people who are in their 50s and 60s and 70s, they won't understand it. They have to die not knowing it is worth. But what Chomsky does, like this was a person who was brought up in the communist system and who had to adjust with the capitalist system, free market economy. I am giving the example of one such young man who was highly educated and who was born in one and was basically struggling to understand the other, and who had broad, very bright prospects of a good future. Like he was not a loser in that system. He was well set. Like his family was wealthy. He was highly educated. Like he benefited from capitalism. But at the same time, he was not happy. He was confused whether. Now, for us, basically, to understand the world is even more difficult. Like we are on the fringes of market economy. We are still in the clutches of feudalism, like especially Punjab and Sindh. KP is, there are no big uh, land ownings. Even Balochistan, the biggest province of Pakistan in terms of land, is controlled by 5 families. So they have the whole control of the biggest province in Pakistan. So KP is comparatively free because its land owning is not big. Like in Punjab, it's big. So when we try to understand how media and education works, it's even more difficult for us. But what Chomsky does is basically to gives you that we shouldn't think in terms of binaries. Do you understand what binaries are? I'm sure you would, but I'm just asking. Like binaries are in terms of opposite, like black and white is binary,
So
men,
what?
women. Uh,
Like yin and yang.
yeah, everything. Like binaries are opposites, like good and bad, for example. Like when we say that in communism things were bad, meaning in capitalism these are supposed to be good. When we say that things in in Hindu India are bad, meaning that things in Muslim Pakistan would be good. And we both know, we all know that that's not true. It has nothing to do with religion. We are living in societies both on both sides of the border where ruling elite are exploiting the people. That's plain and simple. You don't need to be an Einstein to understand that. But binaries always help vested interest, because in the binary, if you in a binary setting, if you decide to be the good person, then the other one is bad. So all the hatred will be directed towards the bad one, and all the good to the good one. So what Chomsky does is that he breaks the binary. He says, no, there are no goods and bads. Like that's not true that we fought communism and we were all good. No, this is how we operate. Like and he takes two main. Basically, he focuses on media. And then the last video that I shared, a journalist asks him to if the same model applies to education, and he explains that. He has explained it in his books. Like the although Chomsky was not the first one to mark the contradiction in the capitalist system. There are many. Like, for example, if you read Charles Dickens, for example, he gives you the contradictions of the system. Have you seen the movie Christmas Carol? You haven't. It's twice made. Okay. That's Dickens. And then you read Oscar Wilde, he shows the contradictions and he laughs at it. And then you read many people. Uh, but then comes one of the most defining writers, like he was a journalist by profession, George Orwell. Have you heard the name of George Orwell? 1984, there is a book named 1984, or The Animal Farm. Yeah. Okay. So if you have time somehow, just try to, there's a movie also on Animal Farm. So George Orwell, I think he wrote the book in the 50s or the 60s. He wrote about,
So which show is this?
what was the question as well? Sorry.
So I'm asking which show it was for George, which you were telling us about.
Oh, George Orwell wrote those books. 1984, you can just Google it. 1984 is very famous. During the Trump era, 1984 was republished by Penguin. And the edition sold in millions. Because people said, this is 1984. And Animal Farm was written about, it was more about the Soviet-led communist world. But then when you read it, you think that you are reading about your own country. The same is true for 1984. Like he wrote it in the 50s or 60s, and he described the future. And people thought that it's kind of like fiction, but it became reality when the world more when we started thinking, because it was the same as George Orwell was telling us. What Chomsky does is basically gives you a very clear research-based analysis of how the world around us is. Now, that's the importance of Noam Chomsky. And he wrote those books, and he tirelessly worked. Now, he has a big beard now. He's very old. He's almost inaudible, but he still works. Like he pushes his agenda, which is a human one. And that's the point. The point of watching those videos and discussing those is to understand how media works in a capitalist system. Like not like we can't see media as an isolated free function of a society, as uh, Chomsky says that when we talk about freedom, that we have a free media, it means that free media means that it will challenge power in all forms. Like it will confront it. He says, no, that's not true. The free media knows its limits. It doesn't go beyond that. It's in the same way, in every society, free people know how free they are. And what Chomsky does is basically gives you an understanding of how limited your freedom is. And the second important thing is that he says that your understanding, like the word understanding, that I understand my limitations, which is these limitations are transferred to us through media and education, which change our cultural system. And the illusion is that our media and education systems are in consonance with our cultural values. That's not true. No, our cultural values are changing according to the education and media systems. What is being told over on those. And so he says that we are indoctrinated to know our limitations. And that's what manufacturing consent means. Like Chomsky says that consent is not manufactured through killing people or beating them up. That's also one instrument. Like last night, what happened to, if you know about, one journalist was beaten up at home, and he came to, in Islamabad, this has happened at home. Three people beat him up, and then they just left. And he went uh, to the hospital on his own, stuff like that. But most of us agree to work within certain limitation. And he says there is the role of media and education. Like, for example, I give you an example of the course that you have. Like, theoretically, a course is a living document. Do you know what a living document is? Okay. A living document means that it changes. What a teacher does ideally is to draw a course outline, give objectives, and these objectives are also subject to discussion. Like students in the first, like the US tradition is that you have to give printed copies of the course to every student. The first class the students attend means that they read the whole document. They don't, but theoretically, that's the idea. And they can tell the instructor if they wish to have something else. Well, let me tell you, no student in the US does that. You give it to them, they put it in their bag, and they just look at you. And they say, okay, when are we free to go? Because this is the first class. Let's not discuss anything. The same as you do. When I ask you to ask questions, you say, no, you explained it so well that we don't have any questions. Okay, thank you. So I'm happy because there are no questions coming. Nobody is contradicting me. Nobody is hurting my ego by asking questions or objecting to what I say. We are perfectly fine. It's win-win, leave. That's conditioning. That's what's done. Although no matter how many times I ask, you will come up with the same answer. And globally, wherever I go to teach, the same answer will come out perfectly fine. All this is done through manipulating the education and media system, like prime time, for example. And it's serving a bigger purpose, as you say, the corporate world. Like you must be knowing working hours are from 8 to 5 or 4, 8 to 4, 9 to 5. Yeah. If you get a break for food, your work day, if it's an hour's break, it will go to 4:30 or 5. Then you come back. Do you know when prime time television begins? There is a term used to say that there is prime time. This is prime time TV. Do you know what time it is? Anybody? Adil
Okay,
would be
it's
knowing.
9 p.m. There is breaking news. I know because my dad always puts on the news
Yeah,
at
yeah.
9 p.m.
That's from 8 to 11 o'clock. 9 p.m. is the news time. So they just push you into entertainment at 8 o'clock and then say, okay, at 9 p.m. you have news, half an hour. Then you have some stuff going on. Then 10 to 11, 11 to 12. 11 to 12 is normally something light, comedy, stuff like that. So that's prime time, 4 hours. The capitalist system makes you work all day. You get back home, you eat, you bring some groceries from that you were told to bring, uh, and then you come home, and then you eat and you take some rest, and prime time is ready for you. Millions of choices, or Netflix, for example. Watch it day and night, and then you are supposed to go to bed around midnight to be up at 6 or 7 and in offices at 8 and then work again, and then you are given a weekend to get fresh and start working for the same employer on the same salary again, looking for a better salary, living your life and dying in the end. That's life. That's life in the capitalist world. But nobody understands that. Like people, we enjoy doing what we do. Like we all do that. I say that I enjoy teaching. Yeah, I do. But do I enjoy working for somebody from 8 to 5? And in between, if they wish me to work, I do it again. I don't. Nobody does that. Like, like at my age, like right now, where I am in my career, I don't need to be bound by many things. But it's 30 years after my professional career started. And then they'll give you a time to move into your retirement years, taking it easy if you are successful. Otherwise, you'll just work. But Chomsky tells us that basically the education system and the media system keeps us in an illusion where we think that we know things and where we think that we have learned something. But if we look at the way we live, it's not there. Like we are not living for our own very selves. We are not even living for our own very families. How? Why is that? Like you are young men and women, your parents are working, you are studying, and look at the studying structure. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's all goal oriented. You have to do this, and you are thinking about whether you will get a job or not, whether you will think about things or not, and your parents will be worried. Like I always give this example of my boys. Please don't be annoyed with that. My younger son really doesn't care, and his mother gets worried, and she says he doesn't care. He studies. Like he doesn't care about the future. There are no plans of the future, and this is considered to be a bad thing. And somebody is enjoying his life, but if he's not worried, people around him will be worried that this guy doesn't care. So it's a whole culture where global culture in which you are considered to be a product. You are not buying any product. When Chomsky says that you are not buying media, media is selling you to the advertisers. That's what he's telling. Because media is keeping you within a structure of restraint and innovation. Now, the problem Chomsky identifies is that when you are so disciplined and then you go out and then you get into the market, it's a capitalist market. It prizes innovation. Like, why am I more valuable as a communication studies professor than my other colleagues? Because I proved to be more innovative during the years. But the problem is that if I am trained in conformity, how would I innovate? For that very reason, the solution to that very reason for that problem is on-job courses. So the most obedient amongst us, intelligent but obedient, are selected into different job structures and then further trained to be innovated, restrictively innovative within their sphere. So they are conditioned to be as innovative as it's needed. And the best amongst us are given chances to work in organization where their innovation will help the capitalist structure, but would not harm its interests, the private sector. So they are paid more. Okay. But there are no safeties, no securities. You earn more, but the moment your boss wishes, you are out of it. And you are replaceable. And also a system of education that gives similar courses like the national curriculum right now will make everybody disposable. Like people with the same set of skills, the same degrees, won't be competing with each other. Yeah, somebody would be good, somebody would have experience. But the moment you decide to take that person out, there'll be 10 clones available to do their job. And that's how it exploits. So that's what Chomsky tells us. But the point here is, does Chomsky want to scare us? No, he just wants to be aware of what the life around us is. And that's the most important thing in understanding a media system. That you work in the media system and you have, if, for example, if you are a journalist, you have this inflated ego of thinking that you know, but you have to understand your limitation. Things that you don't know, things that are beyond your control, and you have to continuously intellectually strive to make things better for yourself and other people. It's a long drawn struggle. Chomsky is one of them. Edward Said, Chomsky, Professor Iqbal Ahmed from Pakistan, who was also one of their friends, and many others. We have a long list of contributions from Frantz Fanon to Michel Foucault to many others, philosophers, intellectuals, artists who contributed to it, professors, researchers. And sometimes when you go into those people who hate them, they'll say, oh, these guys have the luxury of doing so. No, that's not true. They have made a conscious decision to tell us the reality of the life we live and to tell us that the modern ideal of freedom is not being fulfilled, that we are not getting what we have paid for. Like living a modern life doesn't simply mean having enough to eat, having a big house, or having a big luxury car. It's about how free am I to make decisions. And we know it when we don't know it, basically. We enjoy our consumer values, we enjoy watching television, we enjoy reading books and all that stuff that goes on. It dawns upon us when somebody says no to us and we think that it's our right, and they say, no, this is not your right. It's just that we never stopped you from doing something. And that's the moment when individuals know that there is no freedom. Freedom is an illusion. And that's what Chomsky warns us about. And he knows that there are ways out. And it's the responsibility of each and every individual to find that way out. Not at the cost of their lives. No, not at all. But simply the first step is to understand, critically examine whatever you are in. Like if you are watching media, you should critically understand the context. If you are a student, you should critically understand what you are being taught. And you should also be thinking that what will you get out of it? How how can I become a better human being? Believe me, it's very important to understand that how useful I could be to people around me. What ills of the society I can eliminate? How can I make life easier for other people? Like these are important questions. Our education system never tries to answer these questions. Whenever you take courses, these questions are not brought to the fore. In no syllabi, there are those, but these are the questions that you have to ask to humanize what you do. And also keep an eye on the human aspect of what you are learning and the net outcome. This is all about you. It's not about us, but it's about you. And that's where Chomsky's work becomes very important. He's not the only one, as I have told. There are hundreds or thousands of people who write about it. He's one of the more articulate and simpler of these writers and intellectuals. So that's all that I had to say. Stop the recording. If you have any questions,